Okay, so hey everybody, and welcome to the next in our Blueshift public demo series. Today we're going to learn about how a SmartHub CDP can make marketing smarter. So my name is Jolyon Hunter. I'm a solutions consultant for Blueshift. My career has been spent in marketing technology, and I've previously worked for vendors, agencies, and client side to help customers get the most out of platforms like Blueshift. Today we're going to be looking at a brief background of Blueshift. We're going to look at some of the details around what a SmartHub CDP actually is. And then we'll jump into the platform. We'll see some of the elements of the Blueshift platform, which kind of stand for the smart part of the SmartHub CDP. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. However, this is a freely open webinar, so if you have any questions as we go, please don't hesitate to enter them into the chat as we progress. So without further ado, let's have a look at some background about who Blueshift is, and I'll just pause my video so that we get the most bandwidth. Great, so Blueshift was actually founded by Vijay, Mehul and Manyam back in 2014. And our co-founders spent the majority of their careers working together, both at the intersection of AI and marketing. So early on, all three were at a company called Cosmix, and that was acquired by Walmart, which became Walmart Labs. Later on, they would go on to found Matado, which became Groupon Goods. And you can see the trend here. They're very intelligent and very smart cookies who build technology from the ground up. And that's one of the key differentiators for Blueshift perspective, is that we are purpose-built. We're not kind of a hodgepodge of different solutions which have been kind of shoved together to try and in some hope that they might work. We are a early series funding company, and we have raised venture capital from three of the well-known vendors that you can see on the screen in front of you. Blueshift operates in a number of different verticals and industries. We have customers across the world in different verticals using us for a variety of different purposes. Some of our success stories on the website will go into the details of some of the success they've had with us. However, we're also compliant with most of the kind of key industry standards in terms of data security and privacy. Going above and beyond in terms of HIPAA and CCPA and GDPR compliance. We're also SOC 2 certified, which is reviewed on an annual basis. We're also been validated by a number of top analysts. So if you check out our ratings on G2 Crowd and also our Forrester report, you'll kind of get a good feel for what we're about. Gartner also named us a cool vendor in AI for marketing, and it's actually the Gartner definition of SmartHub CDP that we're going to be looking at later. It's not a term that Blueshift has invented. It's actually something that the industry is starting to use more of. I think the key takeaway from all of this is don't just take our word for it. We commissioned Forrester to actually interview a number of our customers, and they found that the average revenue lift and ROI was 781% for those customers. And a lot of the capabilities that caused, or the levers that caused that incremental revenue, they are the smart aspects of our platform. So things like our AI, the ability to do real-time interactions, and our cross-channel engagement functionality, all of which we'll start to look at in a second. So what actually is a SmartHub CDP? Well, we believe that unlike traditional CDPs and marketing automation platforms, a SmartHub CDP actually completes the full cycle of data unification, intelligence, and orchestration and feedback. So it's kind of a continuous loop. And essentially what that means is that your tech is continuously being informed and learning more about your customers, and being made smarter by that SmartHub CDP. The SmartHub CDP is actually made to fit perfectly into your tech ecosystem and unite that stack around a single complete customer view. So it then uses that customer understanding to direct marketing actions across all those different touch points, whether that be into your sales CRM, whether it be merchandising, finance, external systems, so on and so forth. Interestingly, the CDP Institute actually released their latest State of Customer Data report last week, and they found that the majority of participants for the first time actually described their marketing tech as an integrated multi-system architecture. So that ability to integrate across different platforms is critical, and is something that is very much a characteristic of SmartHub CDPs and indeed of Blueshift. So when it comes to Blueshift's definition of SmartHub CDP, let's break that down into the three different sections, shall we? So in terms of the CDP section, we're looking at the ability to unify data and segment it. So making it actionable, making it live across a 360 view of a customer, and making it ready to be activated. So that segmentation functionality, so looking at the who and applying some smart kind of computed affinities or scores, that's something that we'll take a look at in the demo itself. When it comes to the hub section, we're talking about things where we can orchestrate and activate that data. So it's a single place to basically create that omnichannel experience. So having that data in a single place and unifying it isn't that useful unless you can actually action it, and that's essentially the hub part of the SmartHub CDP. That omnichannel orchestration is something that Blueshift again is very good at, and that's something we'll take a look at in the demo shortly. Finally, in terms of the smart section, and that's really what we're going to be covering most of today, we're looking at how you can predict and make decisions on next best action, the content that you might be serving to customers, make real-time decisions, drive that one-to-one content personalization, and essentially have that transparent and customizable AI. And that's a really important point to kind of look at in terms of your evaluation of SmartHub CDPs, making sure that AI is actually a core part of the platform like it is with Blueshift, and not that it's a kind of additional add-on or a feature that is an afterthought or a third party that runs it. So without further ado, let's take a look at how Blueshift works. We activate all of that first-party data that we store in our CDP functionality. So that could come from data warehouses, real-time events, your product or content catalog. And what we do is we apply that learning, those AI capabilities to make predictions about your customers. So we can start to look at who is likely to purchase, what products to recommend to them, when to actually send to them, so making sure we take into account when they're most likely to engage with us, and then where they're most likely to engage, so taking a look at the different channels across the ecosystem that they might be existing on, right? All of those capabilities mean that we can actually start to create those one-to-one personalized campaigns for that customer at that point or that channel or wherever they are in that life cycle with you as a brand. And again, all of that data starts to sync back and update that profile in real time so that we can get a much more granular and better understanding of that customer. I think the key takeaway for you guys is that we do that at scale. So we easily can create those personalized recommendations across different channels. So not just channel specific, so it's not just an email. You can reuse or repurpose that recommendation across push, SMS, or even by plugging it into your own website through our live content functionality. And essentially what that means is that we're able to help customers get further along the spectrum of marketing program sophistication. So at this point, I'm going to launch a quick poll. So what we like to do is actually ask our customers very much, where do you envision yourself on the sophistication spectrum? Historically, customers were very focused on batch and blast, one message to everybody. What we've seen with the functionality that Blueshift has is that we're actually moving much more towards that utopia of AI plus customer powered journeys. Thanks for your responses, and it's interesting to see that we have a good kind of indication that you guys need help. So if you're not already a Blueshift customer, please do get in touch. Even if you are, let's have a chat with your CSM and we can make sure that we are moving you up that spectrum accordingly. So without further ado, let's jump into a live demo. By all means, ask questions as we go in the chat functionality within Zoom. So Blueshift works in a way of collecting data via a first-party cookie, and that can also be collected via our mobile SDK. So any interactions on a website that I might have, be it browsing a particular category, looking at a particular product, or adding particular items to a cart, that means that that information can be tracked. Those events, all those behaviors can be pulled into the Blueshift platform, and I can start to consolidate those into a unified customer profile. And this is an example of unified customer profile. So very quickly, I'll do some wayfinding on the left-hand side. So initially we have campaigns, which is something we'll look at in a second. And that's where we'd orchestrate our cross-channel campaigns. We'll also take a look today at insights, where we report on those campaigns. We'll have a dive into segmentation editor, where we can actually action data that we started to collect in this view. And then we'll take a brief look into predictions and recommendations if we have time. So an individual customer profile actually gives you the indication of elements of the data that we started to collect on a customer. So things like the general profile information we might want to store, so personal details, phone numbers, email addresses, that kind of thing. We can see cross-channel preference information, and we can also store custom attributes. So any number of attributes, there's no upper limit on the number of custom attributes you might want to create. And those can all be used within segmentation at a later date. As I mentioned, all of that activity that we saw that I might have been doing on the website can be tracked. So within recent catalog activity, we'll see the last 30 days worth of activity, and you can get an indication of what that person has been doing or interacting with on your site or within your app. The center column then starts to look at elements of the smart elements that we're starting to add into the functionality that Blueshift has above others. We'll give you lifetime revenue and order figures, so we can start to look at customer lifetime value very easily because it's computed for you. And then down the bottom here, we'll see things around our predictive capabilities. So predictive scores, these are customized models based on your own business needs. So these aren't kind of black box engagement without telling you what engagement is. This is actually defined for your business and specific to your actual attributes. And you can actually set the weighting of those different attributes. We'll briefly touch on that in a moment. So obviously you can see the value of that predictive score is being computed in real time. So all of those actions and interactions that I'm having with you as a brand, they will continue to update that predictive score. That predictive score will refresh. And then for each individual user within my database, I will be able to see what their likelihood of engagement is, what their likelihood of churn is, and obviously what their, in this case, what their likelihood to purchase is. And again, these definitions can be defined by you, so it might be likelihood to convert in whatever business model you might have. Finally, predictive affinities. We'll start to look at the affinities of behavior that that person has had with us. So engage time. So that will be the hour of the day they're most likely to engage with us, no matter what channel they're on. The categories that they may have been browsing on the website within our catalog, so the affinity that they have for a particular category, and then the affinity for the messaging channel. So which channel are we sending to them, and how are they interacting, and which are they likely to engage with. So again, all of these different features feed into our segmentation and are referenceable from both content and from a recommendations and personalization perspective. So I have all of this data. How can I start to coordinate that? Well, with an example segment I've set up here, I'm going to show you some very quick, easy ways to kind of add that intelligence and that smartness into the data that we're collating. Here I've got a very simple segment set up of lifetime activity greater than or equal to 1. So I've got a subset of my users of around 4,000. And the power of the Blueshift segmentation editor is really that we can use any of these different filters to actually determine which attributes or which behaviors we want to add to our segment. So I could look at activity based on any of the events I might be tracking. So it might be that they installed an app, might be they added something to cart, for example. I can do that from a lifetime perspective. So I can look at lifetime revenue, lifetime number of orders, visits, that kind of thing. Other attributes that I can use, any of the custom attributes that I may have set up for my instance of Blueshift. And again, traffic source is going to be looking at any of the UTM traffic sources that I might have configured for my tracking. So again, all of these different filters are referenceable for this definition of my segment. But here we've got the two elements that we saw in our customer profile. So user affinity, that will give us the ability to add an affinity for either the engage time, that hour that they might be most likely to engage, the category that they're most likely to engage on, and then the messaging channel that they might be most likely to engage on. So you can obviously see that you could add in or tweak your targeting to basically only send emails to people that are most likely to engage with email. So you're not wasting marketing spend there. Predictive scores are going to be able to give you that access to those predictive scores that you've defined within your account. So these are the custom models that you've defined for your business. And essentially what you can see here is basically some reference to that purchase intent that we saw earlier. So I might want to say, okay, I'm going to add only people that are most likely to purchase, add that to my criteria of my segment, and then hit refresh on the segment, and that will give me an instant kind of feedback on, okay, this is how many users I have. And I think one thing to call out is that that is a very representative speed for how quick the segmentation editor is. This is obviously very powerful, and you can use this in many different ways. We also have the ability to create advanced segments, which enables you to do nesting and kind of pattern matching, regular expressions, that kind of thing. So bear that in mind if you are considering using the segmentation editor. Briefly on the purchase intent predictive score, you have the ability to create scores of your own with Blueshift. If you do have the ability to take predictive scores from the beginning of your relationship, you will be given 3 models to kind of create, and we will work with you. Our data science team will work with you to kind of define those models as well. But this is a good example to show all of the different variables that might feed into this purchase intent model, and then the relative importance of those variables in the determination of that model. And again, this is just visualization so that you can tell you, okay, if I wanted to change it to the 70th decile, what does that change in terms of conversion rate? So it's a very accessible and very easy way for a marketer to understand what factors may be influencing purchase intent, for example. Within campaigns, I'm going to briefly show you an event trigger campaign. So this is looking at an event that has happened. In this instance, it's add to cart. So someone's added something to the cart, and that's triggered this campaign flow. Within Blueshift, you have a campaign flow editor, which evaluates from top to bottom and then left to right. So in this tree model, we have the ability to orchestrate across different channels. So what we've done here is we have an email, a push, and a web push campaign. If I briefly show you, you can add triggers of any particular kind. So we have native integrations, email push, in-app, and SMS. We also have customized integrations for all of these providers that you see before you. But we also have the functionality to create what we call custom cloud apps. And that essentially means you can connect the output for this activity to any system that has a REST-based API and accepts a JSON payload. So essentially you can customize that to, say, for instance, a call center or a customized CRM that you might have. The great thing about Blueshift is that each of these campaign activities, the format is very similar. So what we've done here is we're actually waiting, we're invoking a wait period. We're actually using our engage time optimization to make sure that this is optimized for the individual user. And then what you can see here is we've started to use filters based on affinity. So we're saying, okay, only send this to people that are likely to engage with email and they haven't transacted within the past hour. So obviously add to cart, we don't want them to kind of get an add to cart email if they've already bought what they've added to their cart. Similarly, the criteria will evaluate here. If they don't meet that criteria, then they will fall into the next stage, which is push. And if they have an affinity for push, they'll receive the push message. And if they don't, then they'll by default get this third one, which is web push. Here being orchestrated to our partner OneSignal. The cool thing about Blueshift segmentation is that it's available within an activity flow as well. So any of that functionality you saw within segmentation editor is also available to do at the message level within a campaign. Critically, what we have here in the cart abandon is a good example of augmenting a typical abandoned cart, but adding in our recommendation scheme. So what we have here is a recommendation scheme which is based on the recency and the categories and items that I may have viewed. And if I dive into the creative, we can see here that this is optimized for a user. So in the moment, it's for Jane Smith. If I change it to my profile, I can actually start to see the preview for my particular content. and my particular email, so that you can see actually this is related very much to those items that I had in my catalog activity, and that definition has changed for me, and I can preview it for any users. The recommendation schema here is actually looking at a category upsell. So this is looking at that affinity for those categories that I have been viewing. Again, you can see all of the different types of recommendations you could potentially create, and you can preview those within the content that you might be editing. Within the recommendation schema on the recommendation studio, you can see that all of that information can be customized to a very granular level. So in this instance, I've got a definition that's looking for that add to cart event, include items from add to cart within the last 7 days, but exclude anything they may have purchased. I can define further granularity with the filtering options, and I can also include a backfill. So if someone doesn't qualify for that criteria, we can backfill with top selling products, randomized products, or anything else within that recommendations criteria. Again, as you can see on the left-hand side, the extensibility here is quite vast, so we can actually use predicted content here as well to define a further block of content to say, look at the top affinities or the time spent by a particular product, and then rank them accordingly as well. So the definitions and the granularity of recommendations really make that a smart and very personalized one-to-one message. Finally, obviously, I've been sending these campaigns. I've been orchestrating my campaign in different channels. What I can do with Blueshift is use insights to actually report on the success of those campaigns. Here, we've got a number of out-of-the-box definitions by campaign type. One which I might want to use is looking at recommendations themselves. So I can actually compare campaigns that have used a recommendation versus ones that haven't. And again, you can get an at-a-glance view for your stakeholders of, okay, this campaign didn't have any recommendations, this one did, and this is the comparative performance. I think the key thing for everybody to take away is that the reports and insights you can get from Blueshift are quite vast. So the metrics you can use are definable both in terms of the core metrics you might expect. You can pull in custom metrics, or you can create ones. So compound metrics, which are combinations of one or two metrics there. So say, for example, I wanted to do click to open rate as my metric. I might want to group by actually segment. And that will change the report on the fly for me instead. Finally, what I can do with those reports is actually create dashboards, and those are interactive dashboards which drill down into individual reports. So again, you can share the insights of that smart activity you're doing across different stakeholders within your organization. So what we've seen here, those smart components, they start to enable you to have those personalized one-to-one experiences that positively impact engagement and conversions. And they also cut down on time that you might have spent on menial tasks, right? So we're getting that deeper understanding from our data, and we'll be able to orchestrate that across channels. Those smart capabilities are essential in personalizing and optimizing your customer experience, but also marketers need more than just AI. They need all of the capabilities that Blueshift can offer, and that is hopefully just a light touch on some of those capabilities that we have today. I would encourage everybody to check out blueshift.com/events to further learn about the other capabilities of our SmartHub CDP. Our next webinar is on September 30th, and that's actually with one of our customers from Optimal Print, talking about how they've the impact they've driven from using our AI capabilities within their marketing. Finally, what I will say is thank you for your time. I appreciate your attendance, and if you're viewing the recording, thanks again for interacting with us. If you are a customer, please reach out to your CSM to make sure that you're using most capabilities of Blueshift you possibly can. If you're not yet a customer, we'd love to talk to you. Please feel free to reach out to us, and we will get in touch and have a customized demo based on your business requirements and your use cases. Thanks again for your time. Look after yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next time.